All right, episode 30 of Red versus Blue. My name is Mike Stark.
And I'm Keith Curry.
What's going on, Keith? Nothing really new in politics, is there?
Well, Mike, let me ask you, because this is the third week that we've been talking about President Biden. He has been on the offensive this week, trying to tell everybody that he's in the race to stay and they should quit wetting the bed about it and just, hunker down. And here we go. So let me ask you, as the Democrat on this panel, how's that going?
It's not going well. I've never seen such, we talk about divisiveness in a nation and divisiveness between the two parties. But now we got some divisiveness in the party itself, in the Democratic Party. There's the camp that wants Biden to stay. And then there's another camp that wants to at least have a discussion about the alternatives. And I think I'm probably in that camp. The bottom line is, as a Democrat, we want to defeat Trump. But what is the best way to do that? And I think that's where the tension is right now. Some people think that you'd stay with Biden. That's the way to go. Others say, let's have a discussion about the alternatives. Now, you and I have discussed on this show about how do we get to these alternatives? And it's not an easy route, but it can be done, right?
It can be done. I mean, politics is the art of the possible. And the Democrats have a lot of opportunities here. Their window of time to do them is narrowing every day they wait. But they do have an opportunity to sort of seize the agenda, to seize the public microphone, and to dominate the news over the course of the next month as they, in a very dramatic fashion, would pick a different nominee. And Mike, your opinions are shared by, it was 75%. One poll had the number get to 80%, including more than half of the Democrats who believe there should be a different Democratic nominee. The first rule of politics is you can't beat somebody with nobody. And if you don't meet the threshold qualifications for the office, meaning the mental and a physical ability to actually perform the office, you are a nobody in terms of a candidate. And eventually the enthusiasm of your supporters will wear off and you will lose.
Again, I have to say that Biden could be on his deathbed and I would still vote for him over Trump. And I think that is the feeling of most Democrats. But this discussion about at least trying to open it up to other candidates or other ideas is really creating turmoil in the Democratic Party. And as you pointed out, this has to be decided very quickly.
Right. And so when the president announces, I'm in the race to stay, stop all this talk, stop the bedwetting, let's just move forward. I'm the guy. I won the nomination. And then everyone from Nancy Pelosi to 18 members of the Democratic House now, some of them actually issuing press releases literally during his press conference on Thursday, saying it's time to get out. It was like, wrong answer, try again.
Right.
And so you're seeing the Democrats respond to what they're hearing from their constituents and what they're seeing in polls. And I will tell you, the fact that he was unable to move the Democratic political establishment, except for maybe the Black Caucus in his direction, tells me that the private polls that they're looking at are much worse than the public polls, and the public polls for Biden are awful. New Hampshire is Biden +3, but there's a poll, Trump +2, not a state anybody thought would be in play. Virginia, Biden +2, Colorado, Biden +6. New York, that Biden won by 20 plus points, it's Biden +8. The map is widening for Trump. And Democratic political professionals, and Jim Carville, to his credit, and David Axelrod, and Paul Begala, three of the smartest guys on the Democratic side, have been looking at this situation for months now and saying it's a train wreck about to happen. And we're now seeing the wheels begin to screech. And
the decision needs to be made probably in the next week or two, right?
That's right, because Biden can't continue this. He has dominated the narrative of his unfitness to serve. Now, Trump has got to take the narrative next week, and he's going to use that to basically bash Biden some more. But then Biden has got to seize the initiative, and the Democrats have got to show some imagination and some vision. That's what's really missing in this campaign on both sides, because let's just stipulate that, Trump is not a visionary either. Trump has got his own set of problems, but they have been completely pushed aside while the focus has been on Biden. And the Democrats need to put the focus back on Trump. The way either candidate is going to win is by making it a referendum on the other guy. And Biden has now succeeded in replacing Trump and making it a referendum on Biden, and Biden loses that election.
And the thing you touched on that we need to think about as Democrats is that if the Democratic Party decides to shake things up a little bit and do something else, decide on at least having a discussion about this, it will dominate the news. And that has got to be helpful to the Democratic Party as a whole, I would think.
Absolutely. It creates a sense of enthusiasm, a sense of let's focus and see what's going on, an opportunity to seize the vision issue again, to talk about the economy and immigration issues that people actually care about personally, and to alleviate some of the baggage that Biden is bringing into the election. His economy, his immigration policies, which are 1 and 2 in terms of public issues that aren't even getting talked about now, but they'll come back to the fore, and his fitness for office. All of those give a new candidate an opportunity to define the Democratic position differently and more in tune with where the voters are.
Otherwise, it's just more the same as we move down this path, I think. And it
is. And what that's going to mean is that millions of American voters are going to choose not to cast a vote for president. They may vote down the ballot, they may not. But it will have significant implications down ballot. And the reason why the Democrats are in this panic is because we saw this happen this week in Senate polls. In Montana, Democrat incumbent, the Republican leads by 5. In Wisconsin, Democrat incumbent, they're tied. In Arizona, where you get Carrie Lake, who's going to be the worst senator, she will displace Josh Hawley, tied. Inside politics now ranks Montana and Ohio, where Democrat is up by 6, is toss-up states. Pennsylvania, the Democrats up by 1, Nevada up by 3. So hard Democrat senators who have always been running ahead of Biden are now in very tough races. Here in Newport Beach, our congressional seat, a Democrat seat, the Republican candidate was +3 in today's poll.
Wow.
So it's filtering into the House races. That's why you see 18 members of the Democratic caucus say it's time for a change. They see what's happening. They see what's happening in their districts. They're hearing from their constituents. I will give Nancy Pelosi, who is probably the smartest politician in Washington, credit for being able to walk the needle without, saying, Biden, you should run, and saying, yeah, I know the president said that he's in, but we'll let this process play out and see what his decision ultimately is. Giving him time to reconsider and the Democrats time to field a candidate who can win the election.
The other thing I can't understand is that if he were to step aside, it would cement his legacy a lot more than if he stays in and loses.
Absolutely. He will be blamed for Trump. He will be blamed for losing the House. He will be blamed for losing the Senate. And it will all be because of his own hubris and his own narcissism that he allowed that to happen. Because now you've got a record of everybody from George Clooney and members of the Democratic House, establishment governors, senators telling him it's time to go. And his own stubbornness kept him in there, and he will personally bear the blame. Lyndon Johnson's numbers in 1968 went up, and his ability to govern enhanced after he pulled himself out in March of 68.
Perfect example. Absolutely perfect example. All right. Well, there's some other things that went on this week. We had the French election, and we talked a little bit about that last time, but what are the implications of what went on over there?
Well, they're very interesting. Now, to understand the French system, first of all, there was a Europe-wide European Parliament election in France. As in most European nations, the so-called far right won. Far right's positions are basically anti-immigration, anti-green policies or slow down green policies, and more nationalistic policies. They're less enthusiasm for the European Union. Those parties won big in France, and they won big throughout Europe. Macron gambled. He called a snap election for the French National Assembly. They do the election there in 2 parts. There is a round 1, and then a week later, a round 2. In round 1, the far-right party, so-called, of Marine Le Pen, finished far ahead. Macron's own party, the center party, and the left-wing parties reached a political pact. And there was a lot of political machinations about this. One party leader refused to quit. He barricaded himself in the office. They had all kinds of stuff going on. But they were able to make the deal at the end in that final week where the weaker parties stepped down. And so they only had one. And because of that, the opposition to the far right coalesced. so that the far left ended up winning. Macron's party finished a distant second, losing a lot of seats. The far right party gained a significant amount of seats in the National Assembly, but still finished third in the balloting, so they do not control the election. Now, Macron lost his governing majority. He now has to deal with the far left, who have policies that are far different than where he was. There'll probably be a new prime minister, and there'll be a significant amount of policy discussion back and forth on France in terms of where they move his policies. But it was a successful strategy to thwart the far right, who nonetheless showed electoral strength in France. And had they not been sort of ganged up on by the other two parties, which is what happens in that kind of a system, they would have done better. In some irony, when one sees the far right move across Europe, you saw the Labour Party in England score record gains, and you saw the far left in France win. That just shows you that the importance of understanding the rules of politics when you play it.
The thing that I found interesting, and it's sort of a sidebar to the actual results, is that there were politicians that put aside party for their country. And we don't see that much in the United States.
You really don't. The tactical voting and the fact that it could be organized and done where millions of people have to participate to make it work, and was done in England as well, by the way, is amazing. It's breathtaking. It's that people just have a different understanding of what it means to be a partisan and how to cast a vote strategically than people have in the United States.
And coming up on Monday, the crowning.
The Republican convention in Milwaukee, the city that, depending on the day of the week, Donald Trump either loves or hates. It will be a coronation. They will adopt a platform. I think it's been written on the back of a cocktail napkin. You'll have basically 4 days of Biden bashing. They did do an ad before the debate that showed Biden rumbling and stumbling and faded out to Kamala Harris laughing. And it was a pretty effective ad. It was pretty brutal. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. Trump is going to drive himself crazy because he's going to want the focus of the convention to be on him, but he's also not going to want to take it off of Biden. So there's going to be a little schizophrenia in Milwaukee. I don't expect any drama other than the vice presidential pick.
Who's it going to be?
Well, you and I should share with our listeners a choice. Here's the handicap. It's Burgum, it's Vance, or it's Rubio. Burgum's signed a bill on abortion, and Trump was out trashing him about that today. There was a lot of press that Trump didn't like J.D. Vance's beard because he doesn't like beards. The reason Elias Slotkin, the congresswoman from New York, is not on because Trump says she ought to lose 30 pounds. I mean, those are factors with Donald Trump. And Vance has said some very bad things about Trump in the past. And then you've got Marco Rubio, who has the whole little Marco thing. They're both from Florida, so that creates some issues. So there's problems with all of his major choices. At the end of the day, my bet is he picks Rubio.
I have to go with Rubio as well. And I guess as someone who wants sane politicians in office, he probably is the saner of the three, right?
The standard has been lowered in the Republican Party, but, Burgum is pretty mainstream too. Yeah. And he was a businessman. Rubio has proven to be much more transactional than perhaps he was when he first got elected as sort of a Tea Party guy. He's become more mainstream, but he's also tacked, pretty hard to the MAGA wing. But at the end of the day, he brings more in terms of electability than the other two do.
When will they make that decision?
I think Thursday is when the nominee accepts the nomination. I think they'll probably vote on Monday. Then they'll have the vice presidential discussion. And then they'll have a day of platform and bashing of Biden. And then the big coronation for Trump.
Before we wrap this up, though, let's talk about what would happen if the Democrats make some sort of a decision by Sunday of this week. Would that affect the news cycle of the Republican convention at all?
It would utterly disrupt it. First of all, I'd have to throw away all those signs that say Biden's too old or whatever they're going to say. It would put some focus on Camilla, but Camilla may not be the candidate.
Right.
They wouldn't know who to hit. And it would be utterly and completely disruptive. And it would put the focus at the convention back on Trump. While Trump has given his speech, everybody in the rest of the country is talking about who is the nominee going to be. Now, let me tell you, there was a lot of Republican conspiracy theories. This is all Barack Obama behind the scenes.
Right.
Clooney apparently talked to Obama before he did his editorial. And so there's a lot of conspiracy theories about the plan to put Michelle Obama on the ticket. I heard a Republican operative mentioned that just yesterday. So you will see the Republicans just go crazy with conspiracies if that happens.
Yeah. But I don't see the Democrats being able to pull that off. I have little faith in my party anymore. It seems like that would be the thing to do, is trying to make a decision before the Republican convention starts. But we will see.
And of course, it's all in the hands of Joe Biden.
That's right. Well, another great show, and we will know a lot more next week, I think, in terms of some of the issues we talked about today. And want to thank you for joining us on another edition of Red versus Blue. We're having a great time doing this. Please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or wherever you pick up your podcast. And like us on Facebook. What else can I tell you? Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Keith.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Mike.